Okay, so to set more options, we're going to need to open up one of the templates and start working inside of the group. So to open up a template, we have the new or Control N on the keyboard. If I do a little pull down, there's nothing else available there. If we go over to File and New, we'll also see the Control N. And both of those are going to put us into the interface with the default. Right now it's just going to the tutorial, which is interesting that it found those. So Works Corp 2 is just looking at that path buried under the program files, and it's going to tutorials. So we're going to go ahead and pick one of those. If you have the templates folder, that's fine too. The other thing of note was if you see the novice, I'm really not fond of the novice. This is going to go to those default locations. When we looked at the file locations, is going to go to those default files. So if you see a screen like this, you're going to want to click on Advanced. And as we create templates and add to our database, we're going to be able to have these folders available to us to pick from. So if I double click on the part that will launch, if I click and then hit OK, that will also bring the part up. Alright, so once we've launched the template, this puts us into our mode where we can start sketching, but I still have options that I want to set. So right now we're looking at a lot of stuff across the top of the screen. If I right click on any of the tabs, so let's see, we have features sketch. I don't need sheet metal. I'm not using weldments right now. The only thing about all of this is do not turn everything off. Model-based definition is an add-on, and we'll deal with that a little bit when we get further into the to dimensioning and building that in with that utility. So I'm going to go ahead and just turn a bunch of those off. We're using the large buttons with text. Let's go ahead and, since this is experimenting, so you're going to get the tooltips. If you need the screen area, you can turn off the large buttons with text. But most of the time, we're going to need to be able to see those descriptions as well. And I don't mind having that little bit of real estate. The heads-up display, you may not have the shaded with edges or hidden lines visible. If we want to add some of those items, we can go through. The command manager is all of this. We just did large buttons with text. These are all of the available toolbars. So a lot of times, let's see if it's on here. Doesn't look like. Actually, it's just off screen. It's called the selection filter. That is the same as hitting F5 on the keyboard, and it comes up across the bottom typically. And this is handy that if you hit a certain key combination, it will activate some of these filters, and then you're not quite sure why it will only select lines and not faces. So if I hit F5 again, that will turn it off, and we can go a little further into the list. So most of the time I have these turned off. Yes, we want to see, and it's just off screen again, so let's see if I can come over here and click. Alright, so I got to stop going over to that side. Selection filter turns those on and off as a toggle. The heads up, we do want to see the heads up. We do want to see the task pane. I think everything else is pretty good in there. So if I go to customize, we'll be able to look at the toolbars. So right now, enable command manager, another place where we can use the large buttons with text. The important one here is lock command manager and toolbars. Yes, I do not want to accidentally drag these away, do anything to them. That will prevent it. And if I do need to add or take away something, I can always unlock it and then relock the positions. Icon size on the small side, we did that last time. Selections, and then all of the other buttons that we saw on the right mouse also available here. So the options then is you do not have to make adjustments to these. We have access to each of the shortcut toolbars. So anything that comes up here we can modify. Again, this comes with the warning of do not make drastic changes, make small incremental changes that you can recover from. On the commands then is, let's see, what would I like to add here? Usually I look for the split entities is the one I use as the example. So these are the flyout toolbars. So if I come down to the sketch or the sketch tools, how about here we go, midpoint line. No, there's a few more things in here than I remember from last time. We came in to do this. How about just the regular tools? Nope. Still not quite seeing it. So the construction. So downside is I have to hover over each of these and figure out which one I'm actually looking for. Let's see if we go back up and there is features. Alright, may have to come back to that one. So in the view, well, let's use the view as the example then. If I take my shaded with edges, if I don't want it, I drag it back into the mix, otherwise I identify it, and then I can drag it out and add it back into the group. So things that I'm using a lot of, I can put in there. So quick look at a few more. Not really seeing anything in there. Actually, there it is. Just had to not look for it, I guess. Alright, so my split entities is one that I use as opposed to trim. So if I want it into the mix, I will add it to the group. Alright, so under the menus, these are the pull-down menus. These are the items that are under those pull-down menus and the sub as they go. On the keyboard, if you print the list or copy the list, you can put that out to an Excel file of all of the items. If we just show items, commands with shortcuts, that is going to be our list of all of the keystrokes for hotkeys. Alright, so things like L for line, the views control 1 through 8, so front, back, left, right, top, bottom. Control and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Normal 2 requires a selection, and then you hit Control 8 for it to rotate into that position. So still a lot in there. Some zooms, some zoom outs, and just kind of depends on how much use the keyboard, the right mouse button, and mouse gestures I have not been able to adopt or conveniently adopt, so you have the option of 4 mouse gestures. I haven't ever turned it off because I do like to see it pop up every once in a while, but I just can't get into using it. So let's see if we can move that over a little bit. So if I want a mouse gesture, we kind of pick where it's going to be and add to the group. So that's going to be kind of the defaults. And then under the customization, if we get this all messed up, then at the very least we can get back to the defaults. All right, so that kind of sets up my system. Same with the S key. Is anything that I would like on the S key. So we have the extruded, boss base, opening up a sketch. And the one that I use the S key for the most, if you watch the previous videos, is the whole wizard. So I use that one quite a bit, and it's already there, so I don't need to add it. If I didn't want to add something to this, I'm ready to start kind of S key. We go into the customize. It takes me over to those shortcut bars. It shows me the part shortcuts, and then I can add items to the part, to the assembly, to the drawing, and then to the sketch. Each one of those modes has a slightly different S key to work from. Alright, so I don't need to make an adjustment there. I'm going to hit Control 7 on the keyboard. That puts me in isometric, which I may have already been, but I can verify with the triad in the bottom left, and it's telling me that I'm at isometric. And then under the view, be careful of clicking on the eye. It's hide all types or show all types. You want to make sure that you're on the arrow, and I would like to see the origins. Alright, so mostly what I use here is to be able to do the temporary axes. The other one is if your view sketch relations is on, we'll come back and turn that one off. So we do a few more sketches or start into that. You can turn that one on, and it was little green dots. Now it's little gray dots that had the relations in them. I'll have to get used to saying that now. All right, but mainly I want to see the origin when I start, and then my screen. Let's see, we're not doing shadows. The real view is only if your graphics card will support it. And then I am set to plain white, so that carried over as well. If I wanted to change the default, and it's still my understanding that this is the preferred. If we go to the basic scenes and set the a new, I can set as the default scene. That will add it, or I believe from the options when we were in the in those settings. And then at that point, any of the other views, my favorite views, I can always switch through those fairly easily if I want to see something different. That looks almost the same. Let's see if we can get one that will actually change. Alright, let's do a quick double check that I didn't get something. So under the colors, use document scene background. Should be okay. And the default scene. That's going into the list. Oh, so that's taking me right to the help file. So that's interesting. Right, interesting that it there it goes. Maybe I'm waiting for the video, not waiting long enough for the video card to catch up. Or my video card just isn't supporting it. Alright, would have expected that to do a little bit better. Alright, so we get these settings. There's probably a few more things that I'm overlooking. Things like the instant 3D should be turned off. The instant 2D should be turned off. So if you click and it's if it's in that dark gray, it's on. That means that sketches will dry on drag can override dimensions. On features, instant 3D will allow you to override dimensions and move geometry around in that case. So I want to do a file save as, and before I put any geometry in here, we're going to go find the system, and I need a new folder. So these are going to be my templates. And under the templates, I did not check my units. So this is, and I need to tell it that it is a save as type, otherwise I just end up with a part. And so the template comes in with all these settings ready to create parts, and kind of retains all of that information. So notice it automatically jumped to program data, buried it way deep. Come back to Files. This is a lot easier to navigate to, and then hit Save. So right now, at the very end, I think I'm cutting off a little bit of that. We're in millimeters, grams, and seconds. So now that I have, well, let's go ahead, and if I hit Edit Document Units, that is the same as going to the options. And where we had the system options in the last video, now we have the document properties. So for this, I'm just going to go to Units, and this would take me to the same location. So if I was to do inches, and then set this to 3 decimal places, and then we switch to millimeters, and basically just reversing our settings, then this can go to 2 decimal places. Mass can be in pounds or in milligrams or something if we're staying in the imperial units. And then volume, it's always fun just to change it over to US gallons or something along those lines, just to be different. Alright, so I can go in and change those at any time depending on what I actually want to end up with. Alright, so it's set to a custom because I made all those changes. It's not in the default. So save as one more time. It's still finding now the part template, so we can save and overwrite. And then when I close this and go to new, I still don't have access to those. So this is where we go back into the options, and now that I actually have a folder and go to File Locations, Document Templates, still not picking up that first one. So apparently the 2018 templates got kicked out. So I'm going to delete those, and then we're going to add, and this is going to allow me to navigate, and we'll pick up the templates folder, and I need to select folder, which probably was cut off a little bit. So once I select the folder and hit OK, then yes, and then yes for an elevation request. That's always weird. Now, again, depending on your level of security and what you're allowed for your admin user level, you may not be able to click through that without a password from an admin. So it's one of those important to set up and get kind of working before we get very far into the installation. All right, so new. We have the templates, it's showing up, there's my part inch. That was what I created. It has all of my settings, or most all of my settings. I'll think of something else that I wanted to add a little later on. But things are turned off, turned on, turned off the way that I want them. And that gives me a good jumping off point to get into the designs.